I'll hit record too, so you have a record of this as well. Okay, so these are the initial blocks on a separate layer, pulling out these guides that can snap to something. So notice that the guides not only snap to the ends of the whatever element you have, but they also snap to the center of something. So you can quickly get a guide to the center of a certain object. All right, so the guides are good because the guides can help you snap to something. So if you're starting making your path, like once we start making these paths, you can hide these blocks, these initial blocks, and still have the guides to snap to. That way you can quickly and easily set the paths to to these guides as well. All right, so I'm going to go and I'll just delete a few of these. Okay. So I'm going to select this entire layer. So if you look at your drop down here for all the elements that are inside of this first layer, you see the guides are inside of that layer, and then we have our rectangles, and you can select those elements not only by clicking on them directly, but you can also click on this little side button, and it'll select that element. Usually what I like to do too is have my guides in a separate layer if I need to turn them on or off. So I'll just grab those and put them in its own layer. All right, so also I like to put them below. That's fine there. Okay, so now that the guides are in its own layer, or in their own layer, I can select all the elements of this first layer just by clicking on this little block, and then it selects everything inside of that layer. And see what at the very top here it says opacity. You can turn down the opacity for your object, so they're not so not so prevalent, when you start sketching some other stuff out. They're just kind of in the background, and it's almost like you put tissue paper over it, right? Okay, so this next step that I started doing here was, and I'll switch this out here. So what I'm doing is I'm switching between the color of the stroke with the color of the fill. So right now the fill is none, set to none, and the stroke is set to this fuchsia color there. And I picked that color just because it stands out a lot. I can see it underneath the guides and all that good stuff. So I'm also going to take these. There's a couple guides in here. I'm going to just drop in here. Okay. So now let's see, and I'll turn the path for that down a little bit too. So turn down the opacity for that path. And probably I think 90% of Illustrator is the pen tool, at least for me, when you're doing this kind of work. So really familiarize yourself with this pen tool. This is where you'll not only, start clicking and making these shapes, but there's also this key difference between this and just a line. Well, this is a very versatile tool in that you can click and drag and just drag out the handles, right? So you drag out handles and you start getting these curves, and they're not necessarily arcs, they're not circular, but they are, curved. As you're dragging, if you hit the Option, and I'm not sure I think it's the Alt on the PC, you can break the handles. So kind of like mid editing. So I just let go of the Option key, and it went back to these aligned handles. But if you click on Option, you can quickly change directions and do that. So that's just something to get kind of used to, once you hit the Option key. So it's really good to get almost like I guess a tangent like view on something, or just a break. You can see it kind of turns into this direct editing tool here. So when you do hit Option 2, as you have the pen tool, see how it turns into this little V? See what that one, the official name for that one. Yeah, the anchor, it's called the anchor point tool. So you can select that directly and you can change, see how that was, before that was broken? Like this, you see how this is basically, it's called a broken, broken handle point. Like if I zoom into that, you know, this one point has handles coming out of them so that they create curves, but they're not aligned. With this tool, with this anchor tool, if I click this, now it becomes singular. So you're kind of switching between the different types of points. And if I click and drag, I can again drag out aligned handles from that. So that's a way to change the you know, the characteristic of that point. You know, from a single point to a broken handle point to an aligned handle. So the more you get used to that, the more the faster I think this will go, you know, as far as just quickly going around and creating the shape that you need. And I think good practice is, you know, just working with the lettering. You know, just pick a couple letters when you letters of your initial and just your initials, and then start to just trace over it. You know, just trace over it and just practice. You know, the holding down the Option key as you're you know, going around the letter. So like here, I'll just pick I'll just pick Helvetica New, bold. Let's see, do I have a bigger bold? There we go there. Turn down the opacity. And this will go into layer 1. Make it bigger, I'll lock it. I'll go back to layer 3 up here and then just start tracing around it. So you hold down the Shift key if you want a straight, you know, if you want just a straight line. At, I think if you hold down the Shift, it'll go horizontal, 45 degrees, or it'll snap to vertical, and it'll just keep going with these, you know, with these numbers. So if you hold down the Shift, I know that that line's going to be straight. And so this is where you'll get a tangent line. So I'm just dragging out a handle, drag out another handle, drag out another handle here, and I can fix that a little bit later. Actually, I think there's another, in Photoshop, if you hold down Command, you can actually change that point. So I'm going to undo that. It looks like there's a tangency point here, so I'm going to drag that out to there. Click on that. Click and drag. Click and drag. I'm holding down Shift too so that they stay straight. And there, I just with the final one is that last click. So once you have your shape roughed out, then you can come back and edit this. So the reason why this is sticking out is because of the handle for this exceeded the see how that this is like going up here but straight up. So I'm going to go down a bit, and I think this one has, sure, I think I maybe click twice. See how it's got that little weird element at the end there. So I'm going to select that anchor tool, so the anchor point tool. Interesting. I wonder why that's doing that. Okay, so I'm just going to pull that handle down. Okay, that looks better. I think you just needed some handles. And you can see that fuchsia color snapping little things that go on. So right now it says on. It's really tiny there, but it says on because it means that it's on alignment with the origin. And it says 0 degrees there. So that's a way to snap to that. So there you go. So yeah, so practice with your, with your initials first, and just kind of get a sense of Illustrator and how it's, how the handles work, because I think that's probably going to be the one of the main tools that you'll be using. So with that, I was able to create just a general shape out here using the underline blocks that I already had. So if I go back to my pen tool and I pick that, that fuchsia color, all I did was click here, here, and it's snapping to the guides, which is very convenient. It's snapping to not only the guides but the geometry, underlying geometry. So kind of just follow the general shape of my object. And what I like to do, even though this is going to be this mirrored item, this is something that's going to be flipped as I finish. I do like to kind of finish it off as a closed unit, and you'll see why in a second. Once it's a closed element, if I look at, and I'll bring the tools over here so you can quickly see this. Right now, the stroke is this color and the fill is set to none. I can flip it with this swap fill and stroke. It's also Shift X. But if you click on this little swap arrow here, it flips the stroke to the fill and vice versa. So now this is filled. And what's cool about that is that I can get these other shapes, and I'll get the ellipse tool, hold down Shift to make it a circle, and I can overlap these, and I'll fill this in with white so that, oops, I'm going to fill the white, not, so I'm going to bring the fill forward, so when I click on white, it'll change it to white. So see how we can kind of add details to the side, because see the flashlight has a few grooves as it goes down the handle, right? It's ergonomic, so it's something that was milled that way. So what I'm gonna bring it over just slightly and hit duplicate a couple times. So by doing that, you can kind of quickly see, what the design is going to look like. Okay, I want a groove here, here, and here, right? Maybe they're equal spacing. So you can, another thing you can do too is use the align tool. So I'll turn off the swatches and I'll go to the align tool. And one thing you can do is distribute the object. So, this not only aligns maybe, vertically, like I do here, you can align them vertically, but you can also distribute the object so that they're evenly distributed and you have an even distribution, between those items. So even if I bring this way down and I move this one slightly, if I select all three again and hit distribute horizontally, I'm sorry, vertical distribution, it'll bring this right to the center. Also, if let's see, so if I move one, let's say one is too far in, and I want to align it with with these. So let's say I want to just align both of these, and I hit the horizontal align left. I want this circle, and actually I'm going to make it bigger just to make an example of what I mean here. So let's say I want to align this edge with this edge. But if I do this, it just brings this smaller circle over because this one's bigger, right? And if I move this one to the right, it just brings this one over to the end of to the right of this bigger one. So one thing you can do here, if you kind of get into that situation, is at the bottom corner, and sometimes you have to show those additional options. With this one, you see where it says show options in the palette. You click on show options, and you have a few extra options in this case. So here, instead of align to selection, I'm going to say align or select align to key object. So now, see how this got highlighted? This is my key object. So now this object and any other objects I have selected will snap to this one. This is kind of like the key object now. So now if I hit the align left, this larger object moves to the left of this one. So, you know, it's just a kind of one of those key little things to know about using the align tool. And then once you have those in place, because this is a filled object here, I can use this other tool, the Pathfinder, to minus the front objects to the background object. So if I click on that, let's see here. I don't think I had that other one selected. There we go. So I selected the 3 circles plus this blocked out fuchsia, you know, the general shape that I have, and I deleted those 3 from that one. So now this is part of the geometry now. Those circles. You can't edit those circles anymore, but you know, so maybe you want to do that at kind of towards the end. But you can still grab those handles and move them as long as you have all 3 at the same time. And if you do want to move that groove, you can still slide it back and forth, you know, to move it. But it becomes a geometry of this piece. So that's a good way to you know, to kind of flesh out some really, you know, fast shapes. So let's say if I bring in this one and this one and this one, you know, I don't have to draw out this whole thing like this. Just you can just make several shapes. In this case, use the Pathfinder Unite, the first one here, and it will create that shape all the way around this one. And then you can go back and maybe edit it for, you know, maybe break out you know, a tangent element to it or something, you know, edit it from there. But the Pathfinder is really helpful in that, in combining all these shapes. You know, you can remove one shape from another, and it doesn't have to be white either. You can just, as long as it's a shape. Now that shape is cut out of this shape, and then you can go in and edit those. Whatever you want to do with that one. Okay, any questions so far? Anything you may want me to show? Oh yeah, let me talk about quickly about this. Just the title block. This is kind of a custom title block. This is one that has these rounded, you know, rounded edges. This is my fictitious company here, and this font, this one in particular is called Schwager Sans. I kind of use it just because it looks like kind of this old style lettering for these types of drawings. But you know, you can just use whatever font you want, just be a simple Helvetica. This has a kind of nice quality to it though, as far as you know, these kinds of drawings, you know, very kind of almost like mechanical pencil like, you know. The letters are very squared off, you know, so you can use it. I can provide this font too if you want. But these are kind of the important things to put in here. I mean, maybe let's see. Well, this one, maybe this is not just date repeating, but revised. Oops, put it twice there. Let's see. So I'll put that as 3. This as 1, maybe. So dates are always important. This A here is the letter, is the size of the sheet. This is scale, just it's good to tell the viewer, whoever's receiving this, what scale this drawing's in. Sometimes you may want to put some kind of nomenclature here saying, who this belongs to, some kind of a, proprietary kind of stuff, just some disclosure stuff in there. So sometimes that's included as well. But it should have, company name, and a title for this. You can also put maybe who drew it, if it's someone else, within the company, maybe. You could put could be in this font, it could be whatever font you like. That could be something like, let's see, drawn by. So that way, you can refer to who drew it if it wasn't yourself. So another thing you may want to put is some coordinates so they can refer to a certain area. So that if you're referring to B2, you're looking at this area of the drawing. So this is one of those things that you should always probably put in your drawing, some kind of coordinates. What else? It's good to put a perimeter to denote the just the extent of the drawing itself, in case they do print this out or copy it, and maybe the entire copy doesn't go through, or maybe you're missing a sheet or something. You do want to show that there is a perimeter to set a boundary to that, so that they know they have kind of the whole print, right, and nothing's missing. So in continuing with this flashlight, so at this point, maybe I can just, I'm going to undo this guy here. So I'm going to remove, so I'm going to get the edit, delete anchor point. So these are all anchor points. So I'm going to delete those anchor points and get rid of that ellipse that I dug in there. And so now with this kind of just general block in place, I can switch the fill and the stroke again, and maybe fill this in with black. Okay. I'm going to just hide the guides, and I'm going to hide that that other layer, so it's a little cleaner. Okay, so now you can add some more detail. Now we can start saying, okay, I'm going to get just a general line tool, and maybe you want to mirror this at this point. If you like, we can do the mirroring, and that one is over here. What's called the reflect tool, really. You can hit Option as you click over this middle anchor, and you get this window. So it's going to mirror vertically, and it's also going to, if you hit the copy, it will copy it. So not only will it reflect, it will copy. And because they're two filled elements, I can go to the Pathfinder and combine those or unite them. So just with that, with those simple shapes and everything, I'm able to get the grooves with the Pathfinder, the general shape, reflect it, and then combine it so that it's all one piece, without having to go in and trace the whole thing all the way around the perimeter, right? So anything that's symmetrical, mirrored, just work on half. Same thing you would in 3D. I mean, eventually when you get into 3D, you're not going to model both things at the same time or separately. You'll just model one side and then, of course, mirror it. So same thing here. So now maybe we can add some detail to it. Maybe this is the, let's say you might call this the outline. And maybe I want to create a new layer. And this is maybe the detail. So usually what I do with this outer perimeter is set a stroke of about either 1.5 or 2, depending on the scale. Here, I'll just use 2 so you can really see it. Usually with these drawings, I like to emphasize the outer perimeter of a drawing. It just, it has a more professional quality, I think, to it. And anything that's on the inside they are either a stroke of 1. Oops, sorry. Go back to that. It was selected. So like with this one, I wouldn't use 2 for that one. This one is more like 0.75. So thinner lines on the inside. Denote that here. So these I can repeat, and I can grab both of these, hold down the Shift and Option. Option will copy it, of course. So it looks like I need another line up here. So notice also that I didn't quite extend this line out to this. And that's because on the flashlight, this is more of a break line. It's not really a line that is doing or creating a cut. It's not a separation of material. It's all it is really just a break line there. So whenever there's I guess like almost like a highlight line or a superficial line, you know, I'm going to create something that is not it doesn't go all the way to the end. Basically, it's more like I guess like an illustration type of you know, purpose, and you can, you know, through your own choosing, you can, you know, you can make it go all the way to the end. I would probably choose not to, though. Whereas something that actually shows the separation of materials, I would go all the way to the end to kind of denote that you know, that does kind of break materials, or there is some kind of like a groove line there or something. Okay, so pretty quickly we're able to get a, you know, pretty good drawing of what, you know, what this is, and I won't create too much detail on this. Maybe one more would be these these diamond grooves here, and you can get creative like what that is. You know, you can start off with a rectangle and turn that, you know, 45 degrees. Group it. Let's see. So I'm going to scale it. So I'm going to scale, non-uniform scale. So horizontally, say 20. So I have my diamond shape there. Maybe put it one here and one here. Okay, so those are those little just notches. There is another one that was at the top, another notch. So just a couple circles. So I think I'll put this here. So I'll select all 3, and because this is a closed element, I can do the, you know, the delete on the Pathfinder. So the minus the front. All right, so that's, you know, that's a pretty decent looking orthographic, very clean, thicker outlines, thinner inline, you know, inner lines, the break lines showing. The next thing might be dimensioning. So usually the dimension lines are even thinner still. So here I'll go with a half point. Half point there. With this line, you always want to show arrows as well. So with that, you can go into the stroke preferences. And so this is a stroke, so it usually looks like 3 lines. And within that, there are arrowheads that you can put. So I'll just pick the first one. So you can see the arrows top and bottom here. And then put the dimension of what that is. It was 5.35 inches. You can put this either vertically like this, to show it like this, or it can also go over the dimension line. So if you do go over, you do have to fill in or, kind of break that. So an easy way to break that is, and by breaking it, I mean, not having a line, underneath your numbers, of course. That's so the easy way may be just to just set a rectangle with white and put it underneath the, or put the numbers over that. That way you control where, where that fits. So that'd be a more kind of professional way to do that. But you can also do it that way as well. So very clean, very, you always want to, with these orthographic drawings, not get too fancy. That's the main thing. Just a minimal amount of information, just exactly what's there. That's all you show. Nothing too, showy or anything like that. It's just all it is an information type of thing. So you could do the same thing here down the bottom here to show the width. You may want to show that as maybe sections, and we'll get in maybe next week. I'll show some more detail as far as sections and alternate views for this, or maybe some parts, things like that. Okay, so let's see. With this one, I think I wanted to show another view here. So since this flashlight is not quite, the same from just one view, you want to show. It's always like I get asked, okay, how many views should I show for a drawing? So I would show the minimum amount of views that you can just describe the object. So in this case, even though it's cylindrical, there's some details around this, and I think looking at it vertically, the main thing are these two notches that are on either side. So in reality, there is a front view and a side view, so to speak. So right in this area, I'll just call it this area here, there is another view, I guess you could say. So we're in this view, we have this, I'll just use a rounded rectangle, kind of a notch that is, looks like that. Put this right in the middle. So this is like a milled out notch. I'll use black for that. 0.75 for the line weight. And I'll go down with the radius of the corners. So this is the notch looking at it from one view, but from the side view, it's actually some material being taken out there. So I can use the exact same shape to use the Pathfinder again. So minus, and there we go. So I can easily get that shape, this notch, looking at it from from another view, from the side view. So, really easy to do, so within, these 20 minutes of demoing it, I'm able to create two views and show enough detail that, let's say, a vendor or somebody that's maybe creating this can quote you on prices for making this as a model or some kind of milled out element from let's say a solid cylinder of aluminum or something, right? They get an idea for the size and the width and all that, and how much time they'll probably spend, lathing this out or putting it into a CNC lather and making this product for you. Okay, with enough detail. All right, so I'll upload this just so you have reference. I'll upload the font, and I think we're good for right now. I think next week I'll show section views and maybe like an isometric. But this would be a really clean, this is a really clean orthographic, or start of an orthographic. Two views, and yeah, I think later on we'll get into the top view here. The top view is just generally just a bunch of circles. And you may want to show a bottom view, for the button. Possibly top view. Another stage might be just showing parts. So maybe using some of these same elements so that you can create these other part, like separate part views. This would be considered in like a full assembly view, I guess you could say, because everything's together. The button is intact. Let's say this flashlight has 10 parts, let's say, including the battery compartment. So eventually you would want to show all of those parts that create every single element of this. So on the interior, there's some interesting threading, springs, all kinds of stuff. Okay. Questions? Comments? Thing pretty good. Okay.